The hardest thing about having a hit show is the ending and satisfying all of the fans of the show. We have all seen Daenerys get portrayed as the Mad Queen and then get executed for that. Whether you liked or disliked the ending, that's up to you, but I'm here to tell you that's not how it's going to end for Daenerys in the books, and I can prove it. What's the deal, my people? You know it is Don Tony Teflon, and I'm back at you another one. And that Game of Thrones ending has left a nasty taste in a lot of people's mouth, and I do not blame them. But as I said before, don't worry, because that will not be the way it ends for Daenerys Targaryen in the books, and I have 100% proof of that, and I'm going to get into it in this video. So if you can, please subscribe and click that bell so you can be notified every time I drop a new Game of Thrones video, and we're gonna get right into it. First thing we have to know about these showrunners is that they do not follow the script 100%. They do what they think is in the best interest of the show, and I'm going to prove this to you right now. In an article they did with Vulture.com, David Benioff said this about Arya killing the Night King. For God, I think it's probably 3 years now. We've known that it was going to be Arya who delivers the fatal blow, Benioff explained. We hope to kind of avoid the expected. Jon Snow has always been the hero, the one who's been the savior, but it just didn't seem right to us for this moment. So we clearly read them say in this article, to us, meaning that this was their design, because they felt that it was too predictable if Jon Snow killed the Night King. So as showrunners, they took the liberty to change the story and give Arya the kill of the Night King. I think showrunners do this time and time again to put their own stamp on the show when they're adapting it from a book, so that they can say they put their own spin. That's why the show was so successful. I think sometimes it's part ego that drives them to do this. But let me give you one more example quickly of them doing this again during the show. Let me take you to an interview they did with Kit Harington and the actor who plays Samwell Tarly.
I'd like to be a warg. I'd like to put myself into a wolf.
Not going to get any better than that.
Two words for you, season 6. Season 6.
So here we hear Kit Harington say that he wanted to be a warg. And then we hear Dan and Dave say 2 words for you, season 6. So he was supposed to go inside of his wolf, which is what a warg does in season 6. We know that he gets killed in season 5. So when he got killed, he was supposed to go into his wolf, but for some reason they scrapped that idea. So those 2 examples that I provided should give you enough reason to know that they changed things up. This will not be the ending for Daenerys Targaryen because they changed things up again. So that may lead you to think, what will be the ending for Daenerys Targaryen? What will happen to her at the end? Well, I'm going to tell you exactly what's going to happen to her right now. And since Dan and Dave deviated from the plan from season 6 and changed things up, we can see what was supposed to happen was set up earlier in the show.
After the long summer, darkness will fall heavy on the world. Stars will bleed.
We need to stop her.
The cold breath of winter will freeze the seas.
Not now.
And the dead shall rise in the north. In the ancient books it's written that a warrior will draw a burning sword from the fire. And that sword shall be Lightbringer. Stannis Baratheon, warrior of light. Your sword awaits you.
So the plan was to use the story of Azor Ahai to defeat the Night King. And for some reason, Dan and Dave thought it'd be better if Arya killed the Night King instead, and that's why they switched it. The story of Azor Ahai goes like this. Azor Ahai needed to forge a hero's sword, so he labored 30 days and 30 nights at the sacred fires of the temple until it was done. However, when he tempered it in water, the sword broke. He was not one to give up easily, so he started over. Azor Ahai took 50 days and 50 nights to make another sword better than the first. To temper it, he captured a lion and drove the sword into its heart. But once more, the steel shattered. The third time with heavy heart, for he knew beforehand what he must do to finish the blade. Azor Ahai worked for 100 days and nights until it was finished. This time he called for his wife, Nisa, and asked her to bare her breast. He drove the sword into her living heart, her soul combining with the steel of the sword, creating Lightbringer, the red sword of heroes. Lightbringer was henceforth always warm to the touch. In order to kill the Night King, they needed a special magical sword to do so. In the show, they did not go this route. They just used a little dagger to kill the Night King. That's not how it's going to go down in the books. Sorry to say that I do believe Daenerys will still die at the hands of Jon Snow, but it will not be for the reason of her going crazy. It will be so he can forge Lightbringer. And here's the proof in the books that points right to this. And this comes from very early on, Game of Thrones, chapter Daenerys 3. Yet when she slept that night, she dreamt the dragon dream again. Viserys was not in it this time. There was only her and the dragon. Its scales were as black as night, wet and slick with blood. Her blood, Dany sensed. Its eyes were pools of molten magma, and when it opened its mouth, a flame came roaring out in a hot jet. She could hear it singing to her. She opened her arms to the fire, embraced it, let it swallow her whole, let it cleanse her and temper her and scorn her clean. She could feel her flesh sear and blacken and sour away. She could feel her blood boil and turn to steam, and yet there was no pain. She felt strong and new and fierce. So from this, we can see that this is Daenerys dreaming about Jon Snow killing her and forging Lightbringer. Let's unpack it real quick so you can fully understand it. The first line of note clearly says there was only her and the dragon. If it was a literal dragon, it would say it was only her and a dragon. Since it says the dragon, to me that means it's a title, the title of the dragon. And that dragon is Jon Snow, who we know is a Targaryen. Next it says its scales were as black as night. Scales represent Jon Snow's armor, the armor that he has on right at that particular time. When he fights the Night King, Jon Snow will secure a suit of black Valyrian steel armor from Euron Greyjoy. And when we look at the Winds of Winter sample chapter that features Euron Greyjoy, the Forsaken, let's listen to how they describe his armor. Euron Crow's Eye stood upon the deck of the Silence, clad in a suit of black scale armor like nothing Euron has ever seen before. Dark as smoke it was, but Euron wore it as easily as if it was the thinnest silk. The scales were edged in red gold and gleamed and shimmered as they moved. Patterns could be seen within the metal, worlds and glyphs and arcane symbols folded into the steel. Valyrian steel, the Dampan knew. His armor is Valyrian steel. So this armor that Euron is wearing is referred to as black scales, just like in Daenerys' dream when she dreams of the dragon and her blood being on the black scales. But how do we put that armor on Jon Snow? Well, first we can see that it is the colors of House Targaryen, but we also have a dream from Jon that puts that all together. John 12 from the book A Dance with Dragons. Burning shafts hissed upwards, trailing tongues of fire. Scarecrow brothers tumbled down, black cloaks ablaze. "Snow!" an eagle cried, as foemen scuttled up the ice like spiders. John was armored in black ice, but his blade burned red in his fist. As the dead men reached the top of the wall, he sent them down to die again. He slew a graybeard and a beardless boy, a giant, a gaunt man with filed teeth, a young girl with thick red hair. Too late, he recognized Ygritte. She was gone as quick as she appeared. So here we see Jon in black armor with a burning sword in his hand, fighting off the undead. Next we hear her say she opened her arms to the fire, embraced it, let it swallow her whole, let it cleanse her, and let it temper her and scour her clean. Well, if you look at cleanse her and temper her, those are two steps. In fact, the final two steps that you have to do when you make a sword. Next it says she could feel her flesh sear and blacken and sour away. She could feel her blood boil and turn to steam. That is because the fire is inside of her, because the sword is turning into Lightbringer. That's why she can feel her blood boiling. Last she says, yet there was no pain. She felt strong and new and fierce. And that is because, as we've seen with Nissa, that person's soul goes inside of the blade. So there is no pain for her. She feels new because she is reborn into the sword. Her soul is now inside of the sword, and that's why she feels fierce. That is how it's going to end for Daenerys Targaryen. She will forge Lightbringer with Jon Snow so he can defeat the Night King in the end. Unlike Nissa and Azor Ahai, I think that Daenerys is willingly going to force Jon to do this to her. I don't think Jon's going to want to do it, but I think she's going to take his hand and pull him closer, like she's going to kiss him and drive that sword through her, because she's going to know that this has to be done, and this is the only way that the world can be saved. So I believe Daenerys will be the hero she deserves to be, and she will be remembered as such. She will not be remembered as this mad Targaryen that Dan and Dave just made up just to do it. In the end, it's always up to you. So you tell me in the comment section what you think. I made this theory up over 6 years ago, and I do believe that it still holds water today. But you tell me, as I just said, do you think that Dan and Dave got it right? Did you like the ending of Jon Snow killing her? Did you like the Mad Queen Daenerys? It brings around the Targaryen history. Do you think it's going to go like that? Or do you think it's going to go the way that I just told you? You let me know. Then please, if you can, subscribe to this channel and also to the Lady and the Don podcast. And until next time, you know who it is. Peace and stay sexy.